It was the first time was Crash, and I talked to you and the gentleman Bobby Moresco.
Bobby Moresco, yes, my co-writer and co-producer.
And I was so moved by that movie. We were at the Four Seasons Beverly Hills, and afterwards you sat on the patio with me and you talked with me.
That's right. Yes, I remember now.
That?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I was so moved by that conversation, and then of course I saw you for Valley of Bella.
You haven't turned your devices on yet, have you?
Yeah,
they're recording.
Yeah, you're on.
I am. Oh,
You're
cool. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. No, this is just fodder.
Okay.
So I've been.
The Valley of Ella. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was the second time. So this is the third time.
Oh, terrific.
And I was so, I guess for lack of any other word, excited to see you again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Because I think that your writing is exceptional.
Oh, thank you so much.
I do. I really do. And I'm, like we all are over 50 now, there's very little out there for our palates that you can just kind of sit down and say, okay, this is something for me.
Yeah.
So I'm appreciative of that.
Oh, thank you.
But I've got questions.
Good. Well, that's what I did. I wanted to make a movie. I loved the movies of the 60s and 70s, especially by the French New Wave and the Italians and people that were telling stories in whole new ways. And I remember when I saw Blow Up, and it was a murder mystery, supposedly, and then you're told towards the end there is never going to be an answer, and then it ends in a tennis game between mimes, and that's supposed to explain the movie. And you went left going, what? And then you thought about it, and you started to realize the themes and what he was doing, and I like movies that stick with you, that don't give you all the answers. They're all there if you really look for them, but they aren't underlined, they aren't all in bold, they aren't all in uppercase. You have to work with it. And so I personally love the films where we have an emotional reaction at the end, but you don't necessarily know why. And you go out on the street with your friends afterwards, and or to the coffee shop or the bar, and you talk about it, and you argue about it, and you say, did you notice this? No, it doesn't mean that. And that's the kind of film I wanted to make.
Well, for me, what surfaced were several themes.
Yeah.
The first note I wrote, irresponsible adults.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I said, okay, is there a message that he is communicating by displaying them? Then there was a message around fatherhood.
Yeah.
And I wondered, the release of this film is near Father's Day. Was that coincidence?
Complete coincidence. I didn't even notice. No, but it's about obviously about parents and children. A lot of this movie is that, and trying to protect children, trying to save children, trying to deal with how we've betrayed them, how we've let them down. That's obviously one of the themes. And then love, and just parental love, but also seeking love from someone else and being able to accept it, and being able to be vulnerable, being able to trust, when there's no reason to trust, especially what is it like to trust someone who's completely untrustworthy, who you shouldn't believe in. And if you believe in them, no matter what, is love transformative? Do people rise to that, to become what we imbue them with? Or, like James Franco's character, if you damn them, if you say, look at yourself, you need to look at yourself right now, because what you're doing, I know what you're up to. You can't fool me. I know what you're up to. Confess. What happens there? Do we get what we need? Do we get what we want out of that? And in Liam, you get a man who is ostensibly writing and rewriting his own life.
So help me with this. What of it was real with the Olivia Wilde character and the Kim Basinger character? Are they real or imagined?
Well, I want to leave that open to people to think about. I know what I think, right? And obviously, we pull from the people in our lives, right? And we often we use people in our lives for stories. We betray them by telling their stories. And then maybe they become characters after that. Maybe they'll never leave us. Maybe they haunt us. Maybe as he's sitting in the square watching something can't happen. She's not there. She's reading his journal that obviously isn't there. Is that she's become.
There are parallels throughout. Whose story is this? Because it's not just the Liam Neeson
No, it's not.
character. Whose story is this?
Well, I think it's hopefully it's all the characters, because hopefully you will see something in each of those characters, or at least some of the characters that will that you'll identify with, that you'll say, oh, that's part of me I really love or don't like, you know, or is a part of somebody else who I really loved and mistreated, or someone who mistreated me, you know, and because, you know, we all struggle with this feeling of are we worth enough? Are we worthy of love? Can we trust someone to love us? Or if we open up to them, will they automatically betray us? You know, we all struggle with that. So I think that's in all the characters. All those characters are me, and you know, the women, the men. They all deal with issues that I've dealt with in relationships. And of course, it's about the creative process and how selfish we are as creators, as writers, and who pays the price for our selfishness. It's not us, others. People we love pay that price, and you see that in Liam's story. But you also see, I mean, as he's reflecting on, you've got Maria Bello's character who is damning her husband, saying, "I will never forgive you." Now, if that truly is a story, then perhaps Liam's character is more comfortable being damned than he is being forgiven. You know, which is, you know, because you've got his wife who is forgiving him for a choice or a similar tragedy, or maybe the same tragedy, and that's kind of hard for him to accept. He can't even go home. You know, it's like he's lost, and he's tried to find salvation, tried to make sense of his life. So what we do as writers, we try to make sense of our life through our characters. We try to put life in order, and yet, if you listen to your characters, they often lead you to places you don't want to go, things you don't want to face, and obviously that's happening with Liam. The characters are quite literally leading him to things he doesn't want to see.
Well, if in fact this is an introspective sort of reflection of the lives we lead, life as a writer, how has your family been able to support you as a writer and embrace you emotionally, knowing the proclivities and all of the other habits?
You know, I've gone through 2 marriages. My second wife, we're now divorced, is my best friend, and she reads all my scripts. Some of the lines in this movie came from her, and my kids are, you know, love me despite my flaws, despite the fact that I sometimes don't deserve it, and the fact that I've, you know, worked so much. You know, the guilt I carry about my children is that I was never there. I worked so much. I worked as a furniture mover, first of all, for 8-10 hours a day, and then I'd come home and I'd write for 3 or 4 hours after that. I wasn't available to them. And then when I finally got work in comedies and sitcoms, I'd work constantly. You have to work so hard to make it. And we try to pretend that we're doing that for our family and lovers. We're not. We're selfish. We're doing it for ourselves. And yes, they get the benefits of, you know, of the lifestyle and that, but that's a poor second. So I still carry that guilt, even if my kids are really close to me. I love them all, and they all understand me and my sometimes ridiculous choices in life. But that doesn't mean that I'm worthy of that.
Are they 2 writers? Any of them?
Yes, Alyssa, my eldest daughter, is a writer, and she writes with me often now. We've got a movie that we're hoping to do very soon called The Ranger's Apprentice that we've written together, based on a series of books. She's written other things with me. She researches for me. My middle daughter is an artist, a fine artist, a beautiful painter. My youngest daughter is working in Detroit right now on the movie Batman and Superman, or Superman and Batman, and she's an assistant on that, and loving it. And my son, my second marriage, James, just turned 16. I'm not sure what he's going to do yet, but he loves telling stories. He also loves science and math, so we'll see where he goes.
What, you are equal parts what? Because you have ownership of this whole thing, producer, writer, director.
Yeah.
So if you were to describe you to me, you are equal parts what?
Oh, a mess. I'm just a guy who's trying to tell an honest story and to tell it as well as I can. And that's it. I'm just a storyteller.
Nothing beyond the storyteller?
No, just a storyteller.
Nothing you'd like to share beyond the storyteller?
Oh, no, a storyteller should I mean, you have to be able to reveal yourself. This is a highly personal movie. I mean, everything in this movie is true, just none of it happened. But but there's lots of things that there's lines of dialogue I said to others that others said to me that just infuse this script. And the situations I found myself in, but I can picture myself in each of those characters. Mila Kunis' character is someone who's just being misunderstood. James Franco's character is someone who's damning someone else. Adrian character who just wants to be a hero, wants to save somebody, and is willing to even steal to do that. Is willing to do the most ridiculous things, and who will believe in someone, even when they won't believe in themselves. Who will go that far for love. So yeah, I see myself in all the characters, not just Liam. Olivia's character, it's just such a damaged, frail character, and yet so strong.
You've worked with her before.
3 times. I like working with actors in multiple movies.
We, meaning the body, the general public, find Liam Neeson so fascinating.
Yeah.
Before his tragic loss of his wife,
Yes.
and certainly afterwards, him redefining his movie star image.
Yeah.
How do you see him?
I see him as a man. I mean, he's one of the great men of cinema. You look at him and you go, that's a man. And he's very vulnerable. He's very available. But he's very manly. And that's what I wanted. This is a guy who just, you couldn't deny as his appeal as a man, and yet the type of actor that you put in a role like this you would never think would betray someone. He's too trustworthy. He's too lovely. You can depend on this guy. He's not going to be selfish.
Is the whole story in his head, the entire thing that you've presented?
Is this from the record or not?
You tell me where you want it.
Off.
Okay. Off record.
Okay. Yeah, of course it is. It is, and then you have, you have Kim, who obviously there and is reading his book, Kim and his wife, and you have. He is having this affair with Olivia Wilde, and yet she does become a character at some point. She's not really in the square at the end. She's not. She's obviously turning from one character into another as these characters quite literally lead him to the thing he can't face, to the thing he's been trying to avoid the whole time.
Because I wondered, when you talk about there being clues, one of the earlier ones, or maybe not so early, is the Mila Kunis character.
Yeah.
The hotel rooms change.
Yes. Well, the hotel rooms don't change really. The note goes from New York to Paris and back to New York, and the flowers do the same. And so I wanted to tell you, because there are things that happen actually before that go by. You just don't even notice because they're very subtle and in the background. But I wanted to say, okay. I wanted people to go, what's going on here? This is confusing. But unless the filmmakers made a terrible mistake, which one reviewer actually said, it was a really quite a good film, but they have to pay attention to the continuity, because at least she's suddenly in 2 countries. Yeah, as if I didn't notice that. Obviously, if that can't happen, what's happening? Where are these stories come from? How much is it real? How much is it not real? The fact that she's suddenly in Liam's room as well as in this room across the ocean, and the same. All the characters start to cross. You see them, the cross of the hallways. You see them everything where they cannot physically be. So obviously something else is going on here. There's another reality that this movie's taking place on, and that's what I want to start to give the hint.
The cast. I'd like you to comment on the cast, because you make us wait for the payoff. I thought the cast was pivotal.
Yeah.
And everybody, you could rest your curiosity on the cast, because they linger.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They're wonderful, and often that's because I've asked them to, and they've rushed to do characters that they don't usually play. And they're all very brave in this, and they're all very vulnerable. And Olivia's never played anything like this. I mean, she was so scared of this, personally. But she did such a fine job. Liam hasn't played a romantic lead in 20 years. It's what he told me. Over 20 years is the last romantic lead he's played. James Franco, who is so present and so and is willing to be so awful, and yet we feel for him. You've got Mila, who, look what Mila does in this movie, kind of amazing. And then you've got Adrian, who usually plays a ladies' man, usually plays this, and he's a man who's so needy in this, and is willing to love this woman despite everything, and just continue to follow a woman who keeps pushing him away. That's not who he is. And then you've got Moran, who does a brilliant job as the gypsy, and this is her first major role, and she steps up and goes toe to toe with Adrian Brody right down the line, and then smaller roles like Loan Chabanol, who plays Sam, the French girl who was in this movie this year, and also she was in the film with Woody Allen, the Fading Gigolo. She was in the last scene of that.
I love Fading Gigolo.
Wasn't it great? Well, the last scene, the French girl in the cafe that they're flirting with, that's her. It's so different, but that's her, and she's like teasing them and back and forth. That's Loan, and
David Harewood.
David, absolutely, who's wonderful.
Plays the agent.
Great. I love David. I never got a chance to work with him before, but I loved him in this because I wanted someone who had that sort of moral authority, and David really has that. And you sit down, he tells you that, and you believe that.
Do you have a friend like that in your life?
Yeah, Deborah, my ex-wife. She and Gregory, who's another person I trusted, Gregory Geddes, who's actually my brother-in-law from my first marriage, who's been my best friend since I was 21 years old, and they'll tell me the truth. Stephen Nathan as well, another one, a friend of mine who's been a friend for a long time.
How much do you want to know from your friends about their true feelings?
I want to know it all. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I want to know. I mean, how often do we hear, oh, you should not be with that man. I should not be with that woman. Now, they're probably right, but maybe they don't see it in the way we see them. Right? We see a vulnerability, or we see something in them that's worth all that. And they can't see that. Maybe they're right. They probably are, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't go there. So I don't always listen to my friends, but I really appreciate that they love me enough to tell me what they really think.
At the start of this conversation, you mentioned this movie centers on our obligation to children and to care for them and to keep them safe. And none of the children are really safe in this film. Why is there such a juxtaposition?
Well, because it's really from the adult's point of view. I mean, because it's what they fear is going to happen to this child, or what if in the wrong hands, or what they feel they've done to a child. It's really children are incredibly resilient, many of them, and sometimes awful things happen. But the guilt that we carry is just goes on and on and on. So I found that fascinating.
So what has life been like for you the past 5 years?
Well, I've been writing the script and making this movie for 5 years now. Ever since I finished shooting the next 3 days before it even came out. So it's been a real creative struggle and great joy. Great joy and discovery in the scripts and the characters, and reveling in the romance of it and the sexiness of it and all that, and yet really investigating my own motives and my own fears and how my own failures as a father, as a lover, as a husband, and so that's good. I think it's good. I think it's led me into a better place.
Are the expectations that you have for yourself now more difficult or easier to accept?
I think it's always been the same. I've just been trying to tell a good story, to find a good story and tell it well, and so I don't have expectations about awards or success or those kinds of things. Obviously, it's lovely to be universally loved. That's not me. It's never going to be me. My films tend to divide people. They tend to upset people. People love them or hate them. And I've accepted that. So I'm not trying to convince everybody. I'm just trying to satisfy myself. And hopefully if I do that, then it might satisfy others. Try to be true to myself.
And what is your personal comment about my personal comment on appreciating movies for adults 40 plus?
I love that. That's what I want to write. I would love to write the next Batman or the X-Men stories, or direct one of those. It'd be fabulous and fun. But we can't have all those. We can't just that. And independent films are still being made, but it's harder and harder to get them seen. Because the budgets, I mean, look at this, I mean, do you see any billboards? Do you see any TV ads? No, because we can't afford them. And so we rely on word of mouth. That's all of it. And so if the audience comes, then it'll be successful, and I'll go make another film. If they don't come, it's going to be really hard to make my next, because you have to, it's a business. It's not just art and fun. It's a business, and so you have to be respectful of that. And so, and you also have to keep a balance. You have to be commercial in some way, but I learned very early on, you know, when I decided to, when I got fired from television and decided to write Crash and $1 Million Baby. $1 Million Baby, girl boxing and euthanasia. Crash, race and class, and it pointed the finger at liberals and said, you're racist. Liberals. And neither of those were going to be financially successful. Neither of those are going to be commercial, and yet they are both incredibly financial, successful, and both very commercial. Did I plan it? No, I planned just to tell a story and take risks, and so that's all I can do now. And then hopefully people will come to those and appreciate them, and so I'll continue to be able to have this terrific life of being able to tell stories. I don't need to be the rich guy who has houses all over the world. I need to be able to tell stories.
Are you chasing those two films?
Chasing which,
in any way? Are you chasing Crash and $1 Million Baby?
No. I mean, I wish I was. I wish I could find stories. I mean, those were just, that was fabulous finding, you know, creating one and telling the other in a row. And I would love to find stories as good. That's what I struggle for each time, is to try and tell a story as well. And that's, but I mean, but say, In the Valley of Ella was one of my favorite films that had no success at all, and yet Tommy Lee Jones and Charlize were brilliant in that, and I love that movie. So, and I'll be proud of that. And I loved The Next 3 Days. I thought it was taking a French film and making it darker, you know, and so and working with Russell and telling that kind of a caper film, which are the kind of films I loved. So and I love this one. So I'm blessed.
In closing, as a writer, describe your muse, be it topography or environment.
Wow, I get inspired by people. I like being challenged by people. I like being fascinated by people I meet, people I get to know, people who open up to me, reveal themselves to me, whether they're men or women or whatever. I really get inspired by that. So just these kinds of interchanges where you have honest dialogue and you really get down to talking about real things and things that scare you. I guess that's my muse.
Wow. This is, you inspire me. You inspire me.
Oh,
I just think a writer who can live off of their talent is just...
It's kind of a cool thing. I'm really blessed to have that.
A really cool thing.
Yeah.
And are you compelled to do more directing versus writing?
No, it just depends. If I'm going to spend 4 to 5 years on something, just it'll be something, because that's what it takes to write and direct something for me, or at least 3 years. It just better be something that really interests me. And if I'm just going to write something for someone, I can be interested enough to do it for 6 months. You know, and that's fine. There's lots of films like that I love. But I better know that if I start this today, if I'm going to write and direct this 3 or 4 years from now, I'm still going to be interested in it.
So has your legacy been written and everything else is just gravy?
Oh God, no. No, I'm still hoping that my best films are to come.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
I'll turn off my devices.